Yes.
That's fun. That's the fun work.
Hmm.
Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. All right, so you're exactly right. How do we layer this in? The MC training. I am not I'm not morphology. I'm not a morphology trainer.
Hmm.
I've been trained and I've taken the practicum, which allows
Yes.
me that experience of learning how to blend it in together,
Okay.
which allows me to share that with us. So how can we use it with what we know already? Want to make sure that we have this understanding because in special ed, we're a little bit different. Some kids may be ready, but the MC morphology instructions for students who are reading at a third grade level and
Mhm.
above and who are ready for word analysis. Now, Sabrina, we may have kids who are reading at a inconsistent third grade level, we
Yes.
could, but you see that maybe providing this instruction can support their tier one instruction. And
Okay.
so you all know your students best, but they have to be ready for word analysis, which means they've had that comprehensive
Oh.
instructional routine. Okay. Some things to consider. It's a
Mhm.
study of the form of words, which you learn in your training. So it's the other component of reading instruction that supports, we're still supporting the phonics piece of our morphology, but then we're impacting the vocabulary. So that's how we're making that impact. So we're now reading to learn. It's going to expose our students to more multisyllabic content words that contain the Latin Greek base parts. Okay. So I know I'm talking about your students in OG can be ready for this, but you might be thinking of other students that you're doing SDI with and you want to do this morphology. You can, because you can teach them on the routine. Okay. And I will share this with you, Sabrina, as well. So let's just do a side by side. We're looking at Orton Gillingham and Morphology Plus. They're delivered the same way. It's just different content. So I don't want, we're not going to wipe our brain of what we learned from the comprehensive. We still have a three-part drill. You learned what that entails. Our students are making their cards while teachers have their card deck. So making the card is like also having an object piece, but you can use those cards, which I'll show you in a while, in various ways. But that still involves a three-part drill, although we have different options for morphology on how to deliver the three-part drill. You could do this, or you could do this or this is what they say. So you have that in your purple flip chart. Okay, teaching a new concept is the same way. We have a multisensory experience. We teach that concept and we go right into the application. Now, when you did the pound and tap for Ort Gillingham, there's no pound and tapping for morphology. What we're doing is pounding syllables because morphemes are either going to be open syllables or they're going to be a base. So it'll be one syllable. So we're pounding the syllables. Now, you may have to layer in if your base is teach, you may have to pound and then finger tap teach if you need to. Feel free, but understand that it's more of the pound. Currently, we do not, IMSE does not have dictation sheets for morphology. So you create your own. I'll show you what that can look like. Okay. Now, what's going to shift a little bit in our thinking is that when we have our red words, and our syllabication, that is what you want to keep for sure with the comprehensive, the syllabication and our red words, because morphology doesn't dive deep in that. Okay. There are some ways you can do the syllabication with the morpheme pieces, and I'll show you that. And then lastly, we do have that language comprehension, which in our comprehensive, we don't go deep. We do impact fluency, yes. We may not go deep in vocabulary, the background knowledge, and reciprocal teaching with our decodable readers, or we pull out literature because we leave that piece to tier one. We're trying to tackle those deficits that our students have. So that's why you see me highlighting it in the morphology because you did get a lot of training in vocabulary building. Um, I I don't see how our students I don't see the deficit and the urgent, let me say it this way. The urgency of our students is to really build that print awareness to break the code. I see morphology as adding the meaning to build that vocabulary. So I don't see how our students in services would be able to have that specific word instruction to vocabulary. That's something I'd like you to consider. And then comprehension, we're not going to do the depths of how you were trained with a comprehension for morphology because our students need to receive that in the tier one and we support that, but it's not their dyslexia or SDI instruction per se. Okay. So these are some things with the side by side to consider. So what you do is you do deliver all the assessments in your morphology, which is the prefix, the suffix, the Latin, the Greek. And then Sabrina, if you haven't visited that for a while, it can be overwhelming. It's all I just lost it. Multi-choice, right? They can
Hmm.
bubble in their answers.
Well, and
Uh,
I tried at the beginning of the year, I was like, let me just jump into this and try it with
yes,
a group. And it was like a mixed group. And we had started making cards, but I just like, there wasn't enough time in the day. I just didn't know how to fit it. And then I started
yes,
thinking, is there a way to kind of incorporate it into the comprehensive?
we're
But
going
we
to do
started
that.
doing this. Yeah.
So
But those,
you have to do that assessment to know
mhm,
where to
where to
begin.
start. Yeah.
Yes.
And that did
Um,
take time because there was like,
Text.
it
And
was
you
stuff was
have
like, oh my
permission.
gosh.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Knowing our students, you have permission to do it in pieces.
Hmm.
What I experience is that, I did prefix because that's more bang for a buck right now, a prefix. So I did the prefix assessment. I chunked it in 2 days, the front and
Yeah.
the back in two
Yeah.
days. And it gave me some time to just get my info. And then the
Yeah.
next week I did the same thing with suffix. Then I began to teach prefix and suffix.
Hmm.
And then I launched the Latin assessment. So you see how you can
Yeah.
kind of
Break it up.
span that out. And then I'll
Okay.
be happy we can meet with that and we can plan what your scope and sequence would be
Hmm.
because you're
Okay.
still going to keep your comprehensive.
Yes.
So I have a picture here. I highlighted in green everything my student already knew. So I'm not going to cover this. No, so I'm sorry. I'm not going to, yeah, reintroduce this, but look at all these blends, the beginning and ending that are already in Latin and Greek based morphemes. So they're going to help in the instruction. So I'm glad these are solid. So I have these two. What you see in the morphology, what's highlighted is that's what my student came. I had a sixth grade student. So they came he came knowing fifth grade morphology. So it was fresh in his mind. So you can see this what told me he already knows. Right. So I can choose to go fast or reteach it. It's up to me. So now that I have that information, you're going to weave in. These are the areas that my fourth or fifth graders still need support in. Like I did teach it, I did teach those long vowels. I'm just getting to my diphthongs. My bossy R, we did the triplets, but they're not solid on that yet. And I haven't even started my consonant LE. So I know what I have to do, but I have enough here where I can start morphology. Okay. So when you look at this morphology sequence chart, they have scope in a sequence. If you open your teacher's guide, you have that what's listed. It's like it rotates every nine nine concepts, but you can change it up any way you want. Just review your data, consider where to begin, and then how can you intentionally weave that in. So I'll show you how I did that. All right, so this is just like a really raw kind of scope and sequence that I was intentional in. I'm going to start with my students. I'm going to review my vowel teams. That's what I'm going to do. Take my assessment during our review of those vowel teams, like a Friday, we'll do one side and the other side on a Monday, And then I know that they know enough for un and re as a prefix. So that week, either 1 week or 2 weeks, depending on your students, and if you have them for 4 or 5 days, I taught them un and I taught them the prefix re using the instructional routine. So I just wrote down notes here, Sabrina, so you can see. Look, they're already ready for unpaid, repay, unpeel, repeal, re-roast, re-steam. Like they're already ready for that. Um, and then I did the same. Look right here. We jumped. So then the following week, I already did those prefixes. The following week, I went to comprehension and I did my bossy R's, just the way it should be delivered. Then the week after that, I introduced the suffix ER and OR. Because look at the word teacher, tractor, faster, singer. Like they could do that with some of my support. And then I could extend it for a week. So what I did, let's say right here, we're with the Bossy R week. The Bossy R week, what I did is I did my 3-part drill with comprehensive, like on a Monday. Then we went into Bossy R dictation, looked at the decoding, um, 1-pager. Then the next day, which would be day 2, I did my morphology 3-part drill to bring that to their forefront. Morphology 3-part drill. And then we did dictation with Bossy R. See, so I'm still bringing in morphology. I just now have to plan when to grab my 3-part drill because that's what's going to help them retain. When to grab my morphology 3-part drill. It's going to be a day 2, maybe a day 3. And it's shorter, Sabrina. So you're going to have that shorter because you just have a few cards to begin with. Okay. You're going to weave them in and how they can complement each other for that vocabulary development. Here's the alternate. That's what you're going to do is alternate, like the story I just, well, my experience I just told you right there. So then when I do the OR, the ER, and the OR, I'm going to get something like this and then introduce it. Some people I know with morphology, I did an interactive notebook. That's it. So everything was in a spiral. I did, because IMSE doesn't have the dictation just yet, I took their spiral notebooks and we had a landing page like this because you have some of these introductory things on the page. We learned about it. Then the next page I had to draw, I had to write out what our dictation would be in their notebook. So that's something to consider. I'll tell you, there's some hope for that. When you teach a new concept, you have routine options. Do you see how it's listed? Well, here's how you teach it. You're multisensory. But when you apply right here, these are all the choices you have, Sabrina. You could do dictation. You could do a Latin base if you're doing Latin words. You could do the word sum. So the word sums are our biggest bang for our buck, what our kids are ready for. Like you see the word paint, we had already did vowel team. So there, I've taught all these prefixes and these suffixes. They're ready to do a mini matrix. That's what dictation can be. So like our kiddos in 4th and 5th grade, I can see them be ready, possibly 3rd too. And so these are just examples of how we use the morphology with those instructional options that you have for the application piece. So this is what it looked like when I finally introduce a Latin base, because they know pt, they're like totally ready for this. But I had to introduce some prefixes and suffixes first. So if you see here, I had teaching a new concept, rupt, to burst or break. We did some gesture with that. Now IMSE has these beautiful cards you can purchase. I love that. And so I use it as my card, but I also have my deck. They see that. So I introduce it with this first. So if you notice the dictation, this is what it looks like. Sabrina, it was like erupts. Okay, so actually that S was supposed to, I just saw my own error. Did you see that? My own error with my kiddo. I added an S. It should have been another morpheme line.
Yep.
So it is,
Yep.
do you see that, Sabrina?
Mhm. Yep.
Hey, this is my safe space. We're all like growing and learning together.
Right.
Um, I don't remember if my supervisor caught that, or my practicum supervisor caught that.
Because in your
Okay.
brain, like you just attach it. I know,
Yes.
like thinking it's not something separate. Yep.
So you see it's bank. They already did that. NK. So we already
Hmm.
had, so it's bank, rock, dead. So
See, I like
bank.
this. I already feel
See
like I
that?
see how you can kind of
Mhm.
pull it in because I just felt like, do you have to do it like just by the book and follow it and like,
Right.
you know what I mean? Like I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know you could pull pieces. So that's why I kind of stopped and it's like, well, I don't want to do this wrong and like, so we started
Yeah.
doing some of this, but I think going into next year, could be in 4th grade. I'm
Or
just thinking some of the kids coming
yeah.
up, I know where they are,
Good.
and I think these are things that we could start pulling in. I just didn't
Yes.
know. that I could be a little bit like flexible with this.
Right. On how to
Okay.
weave it. You're right.
Hmm.
You just have to look at your scope and sequence of what your kids know.
Yeah.
Now I did teach them morphology to a group of middle schoolers at Hobby,
Okay.
and this was totally more of the experience. They had a lot of comprehensive gaps,
Hmm.
and then I was teaching them morphology.
Yeah.
So I really had to look at what they knew well. And
Hmm.
you see like subtracted. So our kiddos could do that. Then we did a word matrix. So because that's another way we could apply. So these are all the prefixes and the suffixes
Hmm.
are morphemes, right? And then you have your decodable fluency. Now, Sabrina, the fluency passages or
Hmm.
the decodable passages, they are too advanced for our kiddos.
I've looked through some of those too. Like I said, yeah.
Um, they
So then,
are what I heard. What I heard IMSE is doing is having an A and a B option.
oh, see, that would be
So I
nice
am
because,
hoping that's coming up, but that might be a purchase. You know what? I'm not quite sure.
okay.
I'll tell you a little bit more about that.
Okay.
But I will, when I email this recording to everyone and the presentation, I'm
Hmm.
also gonna share the resource I used that I purchased on my own that I
Okay.
felt was elementary appropriate
Okay.
for morphology. Yeah, and you'll like
Great.
that. Okay, and then lastly, you see there, this is my comprehension. We just use the decodable
Hmm.
for my comprehension problem and solution. You have those in your training. You got those as some resources. And then
Hmm.
you see my syllabication.
Yeah.
Okay, it's what we do already, what we know already. We're just adding the circling of
Hmm.
our suffixes, our
Love it.
affixes. Okay, and then here are just some syllabication options. You know, when your kids get to building it, they are making their own cards, which is going to take some time, Sabrina. Make their own cards. You need to think about that. We put it on a ring, but they're going to know those colors. Those colors connect them to what part of the word does it belong to. So here you see my student. I uh, did syllabication. I created these words. I pulled them, but you see they're a mix of many of what we've been learning. And then he used a colored pencil to actually identify them and then blend it together. So it just works beautifully. Then the middle is we're going to practice some of our comprehensive. So you're going to see works like punished and confiscate. You're going to see that. So it's still weaved in there. And then the other option that you have here, I used interactive notebook. So we did fours or we did cut boxes in six, and then they did the syllabication in there. But we use color pencils. Okay, so what's new? Morphology resources. So the top layer is what you have to purchase if you want to enhance your instruction. You don't have to, but you want to enhance it. These are all the first one you see here. They're all the introductory pieces for an interactive notebook you could use. They've added some close reading. I love it. This wasn't around when I had my students. The cards were around. I purchased that right away. That is going to go far with me. Like I can make these other sheets if I have to, but the cards are going to go far for me. And then they do have the blending board because lots of us like the slides. You have to purchase that, but you can also purchase that as well, where you just click, and it chunks it. Similar. Now, down below, you have some freebies. Interactive notebook, you got the tree, those are some freebies. And then these two colored versions, I believe some of them have been free. They're adding more morphology freebies, which I'm excited about. Why I have new up there is because in June, IMSE is going to launch their, what is ours, IOG 2.0, right? Our interactive OG. They're going to launch their new IMSE lab. That's what it's going to be called. So the lab will have the comprehensive, what we're used to, but they have created morphology. So, Sabrina, you did fill out your renewal. So your renewal is going to come with that MC piece, I'm hoping. So I'm looking into that and just clarifying because they're still in the works.
Okay.
But
Sounds
that's
good.
even better for us. So I'm
Hmm.
excited. Okay.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to stop there. That's all I have to just kind of give you a
Hmm.
view of how you can weave it in
Right.
together. And then
And I
I
think
am
that's what I was just like, do I have to follow this like to a T? And then I was like, well, then
right.
how do you choose what you do? Because I know kids still need that comprehensive piece.
Yes.
And I knew there was parts that I just didn't know how to pull in. I could
Right.
be that flexible with
Yep.
it.
Mhm.
Okay.